Parshas Noach, Tovshin Ayin Tes. As in previous years, our shiurim on Parshas Noach will of course revolve around the theme and the episode of the Mabul. And of course, it is a very complex Parsha, and there's so much to understand in Parshas Noach. And so much more than the simple story and the picture of the Mabul that most of us may have in our minds since we're young children. We have this picture of the Mabul and what it was. There was a boat, and there was Noach, and then there was how many floors, and who was in the table. We have all these pictures of the water and the flood, and really we remain with those same pictures throughout our lives. And the more you study the inyan of the Mabul, the more you study the Parsha, the more we delve deeper into it, we understand that the Mabul was a very, very complex issue. It was a very, very complex time. And each of the years, being that this is now our 10th year of Shiurim, we've actually analyzed and studied the Mabul from so many different angles. And in Mitzvah Hashem, in the next couple of minutes that we do this year's shir, we're actually going to do the same thing. We're going to discuss the Mabul, but hopefully from a bit of a different angle, and hopefully it will once again open your eyes to the complexities that are the Mabul. And then Nesivos Shalom tells us that the very fact that Parshas Noach comes right at the beginning of the Torah, it means that there's a very basic and very important lesson that needs to be taught and learned by every single person. If something's at the beginning of the Torah, then the Torah was written to emphasize that the things that come first are things that are extremely important. And as we've said many times, and the Nesivos Shalom speaks about this theme many times, especially now when we get to the Parshiyos in Chumash Bereshis, where it would seem that the, quote, stories are very, very interesting ones. The Nesivos Shalom tells us that the Torah is not a storybook. Of course, the stories that are in the Torah are very interesting, and they're very compelling, and we can learn a lot from these stories, but the Torah is not a storybook. And the Torah is just as alive today as it was thousands of years ago. And being that it's not a storybook, it means that there is a lesson in every one of these episodes in Seder Bereshis. There is a lesson in every one of these parshios and every one of these quote stories for every single person throughout history and from here on to the future too, in every single generation. And then the Nesivos Shalom speaks about the fact that the Mabul did not really come as a punishment. Sometimes you can look at it that it was, quid pro quo, that they did this and Hashem punished them with this. The Nesivos Shalom tells us that really the fact is that the world had become so corrupt that it simply could not exist anymore. It was a Matthias. That is the way that it was. There was no capacity for the world to continue. It had become just too corrupt and it couldn't operate the way Hashem had set up the world to operate. As the Pasuk tells us at the beginning of the Parsha, Vayara Elokim es haaretz, Hashem saw the land, Hashem saw this world that He had created, Hinei nishchasa, that it was totally corrupt, and therefore the world could not go on being as it was up until this point. But the Torah also teaches us, while the Torah tells us that the world was too corrupt to go on, the Torah also teaches us how to remedy, what the tikkun, what the remedy was for this sort of problem that was in the world right now. And that is the idea and the entity that we know as the Tevas Noach, the ark. The teva that Noach built was the tikkun, was the shelter for Noach and all those that were going to be saved from the Mabul. And the teva was the thing that Hashem had said to build, and that was the thing that was going to protect the person from the storms, the literal and physical storms outside, and also from the spiritual storms that were going on outside. The teva was a protection. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us something very interesting. He says that being that the Torah and the episode of the Mabul is not just to teach us about the Mabul that was thousands of years ago. The Torah is teaching us the same lessons for us today. And if the HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Noach to build a teva during that time to shelter, we have to know that there is an entity known as the teva that we can use also in our lives today, something to protect us. And Nesivos Shalom tells us that this teva that every one of us has, this cocoon, this building of protection, is what we know as Shabbos Kodesh. That Shabbos is to the world what the teva was to Noach during that time. And the Zohar tells us that Noach actually represents Shabbos. Noach represented Shabbos. And the lashon of the Zohar is that the Bahai Yoima, on that day, which is the day of Shabbos, a lashon of Noach, Naicha le'iloi v'naicha le'tatoi. Of course, this is Aramaic, but on that day, which is Shabbos, there is Noach, there is rest above and rest below. So Shalom brings the Beis Avram. The Beis Avram points out that at the end of last week's Parsha, we know that the Torah, at the end of Parshas Bereshis, was beginning to enumerate all the problems that there were in the world at that time. All the problems of the generation, the pre-Mabul generation. But Parshas Bereshis ends with the pasuk of V'noach motza chen b'einei Hashem. That there were all these problems in the world. But Noach, which represents Shabbos, Noach is also a lashon of nach, of resting. The Noach matzachim b'einei Hashem. The remedy and the way out of the problems of the world is Shabbos. Noach represents Shabbos. The Noach matzachim b'einei Hashem. It is Shabbos Kodesh that Hashem sees favoring. And a way to shelter oneself from all that is going on and all the turbulent things that are going on in the world, physically and spiritually, that is Shabbos Kodesh. And we say in the Zmiros, Shabbos Kodesh, Nafshois Yisrael. On Shabbos Kodesh, the souls of the Jews, Nafshois Yisrael, B'tzel Kenafecha Yechasoyim. That we are, Shabbos is a shield, Shabbos is a shadow, Shabbos is like the wings that spread over something and protect them. And that is exactly what Shabbos is. That is in the Zmiros of Ko'echsoi on Friday night of Shabbos. Shabbos Kodesh is the source of connection and protection between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. It is a place where Hashem can lift up every single Yid, lift up every single person, wherever they may be holding, whatever level you're on. There's no discrimination. On Shabbos, if you keep the Shabbos correctly and you spend the Shabbos correctly, Hashem protects you and every person, wherever you are, whatever level you're holding, whatever you may have done, wherever you may have been, Shabbos is a protection for you. Shabbos is a day that lifts you up. And even if a person is like a person of the Dor HaMabul, Chazal tell us, Kol HaShomer Shabbos Ke'ilchasa. Somebody who is Shomer Shabbos Ke'ilchasa, the way you are supposed to keep Shabbos, Afilu Ovad Avodah Zarah Kedor Enosh, which was pretty bad. Even if a person is Oved, worships Avodah Zarah like the Dor Enosh, listen to these words, Moichel and Lai. You're forgiven. So even if you're like the Dor HaMabul, there's still Noach. The Noach Motzachim B'nei Hashem. There's still that teva. There's still that protection of Shabbos for every single individual. Shabbos is the yesod of Emunah. And since it is so, since it is the yesod of Emunah, a person, the higher level a person has of Emunah, the closer you feel to Hashem on Shabbos. And Nesivos Shalom tells us, there are those people who think that keeping Shabbos just means, you ask somebody, do you keep Shabbos? So they keep Shabbos by refraining from the malachos of Shabbos. You ask a person, do you keep Shabbos? Yeah, that's one aspect of keeping Shabbos. But then there are those who keep Shabbos and they're on a totally different level. They become different people on Shabbos. Their talk is different. Their walk is different. And even their thoughts are different. It comes to Shabbos, the only thing that you're doing different is not just that you're refraining from doing malacha, but you have a different mindset. You have different feelings. You are a totally different person on Shabbos. That Shabbos is so special, and Shabbos has the capability to be our teva. If we treat Shabbos correctly, Shabbos becomes that teva, the lesson of our generation, the lesson to each and every person. Tevas Noach of that generation is the Shabbos of our generation. Where just as Noach was protected by the teva, so too we today are protected by this teva of Shabbos Kodesh. And really the lessons of the Torah we see are timeless. It's not just history. And we understand it so much more today. Which person doesn't feel today the frantic pace about which we go about life for the 6 days of the week? Who doesn't feel the rest on Shabbos when you can actually, we're so connected to technology, we're so surrounded, we're so encaptured by technology. Our attention span is so weak, our attention span is so short. And who doesn't have that feeling? Everyone knows that when you come and you shut down all your devices, and it comes to Shabbos, and all of a sudden you feel like a person again. You feel like you can connect with your friends. You feel like you can connect with your family. You come to shul on Friday night, and somebody talks to you. You're not distracted. You can actually look them in the face. You can actually listen to what people have to say, and you feel like a better person. Who doesn't see what Shabbos does for you just by following the laws of Shabbos? And alachas kama v'kama, of course, 1,000 times fold if we do the other part of Shabbos and we actually become Shabbos people, where on Shabbos we behave differently and we think differently. So this is the lesson of the teva. This is the lesson of Tevas Noach that we can apply to us, that we can apply to our generation. And of course, if we treat the Shabbos correctly, the Shabbos will protect each and every one of us.